Hiruzen sat behind his desk looking over the list of passing students from this year's graduating class. Uruka had dropped it off to him earlier that day and gave him a brief overview of the students' skills. He was not happy to hear the reports of the females' attitudes in class, but he couldn't do anything about it. That task fell to their senseis. He was happy to read about Naruto's good grades, and based on the scores he saw that he just barely lost to Sasuke Uchiha for top male of the class. He chuckled when he thought of Naruto trying to tackle Uruka and thought of Kushina. They were far more alike than Naruto realized. Hiruzen reached across his desk and picked up another sheet of paper that had all of the different teams and senseis written on it. He had placed all of them teams and was happy with them, but he knew there might be some problems. He looked up at the clock and stood when he realized it was almost time for his meeting. Quickly exiting the office, he made his way into the council room and looked over to see all of the clan heads except for Sume Inuzuka sitting and talking amongst themselves. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," he said as he sat behind his desk. "Hokage-sama." The heads all bowed slightly as they returned the greeting. The door opened and Sume walked in and quickly took her seat. "I apologize for being late." "Not to worry, Sume-san, I also just arrived." Hiruzen saw relief go across her face as he finished before he began again. "As you all know, earlier today the academy had their final exam and I am pleased that all of your children have passed." Many of the parents smiled. "However, after reviewing the final scores and talking to Uruka, I have made some changes to the teams. But Hokage-sama, we all agreed that with so many future clan heads they would be grouped together." Choza Akamichi looked around at his fellow clan heads who nodded in return. "And I have Choza-san." This calmed the leaders down, but they still looked puzzled. "I have always allowed you clan leaders to have a say in where your children are placed, but there are some things I cannot go against. Unfortunately, Kiba Inuzuka and Hiroshi Makoto have the lowest scores in the class, Kiba having low academic and Hiroshi having low physical. I decided that Kiba will be placed on the team with the top male and female of the class because Sasuke Uchiha was the top male." Sume let out an annoyed groan as she heard her son was the dead last in the class. She wasn't too angry though, as she herself wasn't the best student in her academy days. "So with this change, what will happen to the other teams, Hokage-sama?" Inoichi was wondering who exactly would be on his daughter's team. "I have made a small change in the 3 teams to counter this shift and feel it will work well. Choji Akamichi will take Kiba's place on Team 8. While he does not have any tracking skills, his family techniques will give the team a stronger edge." Choza frowned when he heard this and was going to protest, but Hiruzen continued. "With Choji on the team, they will have a member able to capture their targets after they track them down. That, and combined with young Shino's bugs, they could hold and drain a target." Choza stopped and thought about what the Hokage said. It was true that the combined skills of his family techniques and the Aburame bugs would be useful. Still, he wanted Choji to be with Shikamaru and Ino because of their family connections. "I understand it is not what you want, Choza-san, but I cannot bend tradition just to make a few people happy." Hiruzen spoke with a firm voice to make sure everyone knew these changes were happening, and he simply was being polite to let them be aware of it. "I assume that Naruto Uzumaki will be placed with my son and Ino than Hokage-sama." Shikaku had his eyes closed as he spoke, already piecing everything together. "Yes, his sealing abilities will help in the capturing of targets, and he is able to make shadow clones, so he could easily have 1 or 2 watching Ino in battle if she uses her family techniques." "How is he able to use shadow clones? That's a forbidden technique." Sume looked shocked at the news and noticed everyone else had similar surprised looks. "It was in his family scrolls, and Naruto has far more chakra than most of the shinobi in the village. The main reasons it is forbidden is the chakra requirement and the memory backlash, both of which were mentioned in the Uzumaki scroll. Naruto was fully aware of the dangers and avoided them." Hiruzen had to hide his mirth at the council's faces. They all regained their composure quickly and Hiruzen stood. "Now, if that is all, I need to finish selecting the best senseis for the teams." He noticed not all of them were happy with the changes he made but couldn't find fault in the changes. He exited the room and heard the sound of talking amongst the clan leaders but made his way back to his office. Once he entered, he sat behind his desk and started writing on pieces of paper, looking up occasionally at the list of teams. Soon he was finished and stacked all of the papers in a pile but pulled 3 to the side. Crow, an Anbu stepped from the shadows in the corner of his office and kneeled. Please take these to the Jonin office and have them distributed to the proper shinobi. After that, please call in Asuma Sarutobi, Kurenai Yuhi and Kakashi Hatake to my office. The Anbu nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Hiruzen packed his pipe and relaxed in his chair as he mentally prepared for the meeting he was about to have. While Kurenai and Asuma would be happy with their teams, he knew Kakashi was going to be annoyed. He had tried his best to be there for Naruto but wasn't able to look at the boy without seeing his sensei. He knew Kakashi was waiting for this chance to make up for all of the lost time and was going to be highly upset with the change in teams. He didn't have to wait long before a knock came at his door. Straightening up and putting out his pipe, he turned to the door. Enter. The door opened and he noticed only two of the people he had asked for. Kurenai was a newly made Jonin with light skin and a slender build. She has long, black, shoulder-length untamed hair, and very unique eyes that are red in color, with an additional ring in them. She was wearing a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Over this was a very broad material which resembles bandages with a pattern on it similar to those of rose thorns. Her hands and upper thighs are also wrapped in bandages. The second figure was his own son Asuma. He resembled Hiruzen somewhat. He was a tall man, with brown eyes, short, black spiky hair, and beard. His clothing consisted of the standard Konoha ninja uniform with the sleeves rolled up halfway, flak jacket, regular shinobi sandals and forehead protector. He also wore the 12 Guardian Ninja sash that had the kanji for fire marked on it around his waist, a pair of black bangles and bandages wrapped around the arms of his sleeves. Both walked up to the desk and bowed. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded back and gestured for them each to sit, pulling out their respective papers as they did. I have chosen you two to TKE the following teams this year. He handed both of them the sheets. As you can see, your teams are made up of not only clan members but the future heads of the respective clans. I wanted to make it clear to you that although they are important to the future of this village, I do not want you to simply pass them because of this. Of course, Hokage-sama. Kurenai smiled at the list as she listened to the Hokage. She was not only happy to have her very own team but also Hinata. She had watched over the girl for a few years and had grown quite attached. I have a question, father. While it was the Hokage, he had trouble seeing him more than his father and didn't always remember to show proper respect. Why did my team change? Kurenai looked at Asuma confused. Even if the Hokage was his father, he shouldn't have known his team before today. Hiruzen though simply sighed. There was a change of plans with the final results of the class and that caused a slight change in the teams, but the main idea of these teams stay the same. Kurenai will train a tracking team and you will train a capture and information gathering team. Asuma nodded. He was disappointed he wouldn't get the new generation of the Inoue Shikawa Cho trio, but he had seen Naruto practice occasionally and was more than impressed. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, but how does Asuma know of the teams if you just made them today? Kurenai asked, somewhat curious and annoyed. Asuma requested to train the new generation of the Ino Shika Cho trio and I granted it, but as you can see, I have Choji Akamichi and Asuma was given Naruto Uzumaki. May I ask what caused the change? Asuma asked curiously and he watched as his father rubbed his chin in thought. I believe it will be fine for you to know. Kiba Inuzuka was tied for lowest grades in class. His grades in taijutsu were rather good, so I added him to a team of Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno as they were the year's best students. The shift in teammates forced me to change them around so that the general idea of each team could stay the same. Asuma and Kurenai nodded as Hiruzen finished. Now if that is all, you may leave. Be at the academy tomorrow at 8 to meet your teams. The two Jonin stood and bowed before leaving the office. Hiruzen sighed and looked up at the clock on his wall. Since he had not said it was important, he knew Kakashi would be late. He was somewhat happy about that. He didn't want to have the discussion he was going to have in front of Kurenai and Asuma. He picked up his pipe and lighted it, enjoying the tobacco. 3 hours had passed since he had called for the meeting when Hiruzen noticed a presence of chakra gathering. Soon Kakashi appeared in the office. Since he had left the Anbu, he had changed in appearance. He was a fair-skinned, fit and relatively tall shinobi. He has spiky gray hair and has dark-colored eyes. His left eye has a vertical scar running over it and wore the standard attire of the forces, and he began wearing shorter metal-plated gloves. He also wore his forehead protector on a simple blue band, tilted to the left to cover his eye, and a mask which obscures the lower half of his face. Sorry I am late, Hokage-sama, but I ran into an old lady carrying groceries and had to help her pick them up. Kakashi spoke as he continued to look down at the small orange book in his hands. Yes, well, here is the team information for you. He pushed the paper to the edge of the desk as Kakashi grabbed it. Be at the academy at 8 to meet your team. Kakashi nodded and turned to leave, only to stop at the door. While the Anbu guards hadn't seen it, Hiruzen had noticed Kakashi glance at the paper. He snapped his book shut and turned back to the Hokage. Sir, may I speak with you in private? An angry edge was on his voice and the Anbu grew tense, wondering what caused the sudden anger. Anbu, you may wait outside. Make sure we are not disturbed except for an emergency. The two men dashed outside and closed the door quickly. Hiruzen reached under his desk and activated a privacy seal so they would not be disturbed. You may speak now, Kakashi. No one can hear us. What the hell is this? He held up the paper. You told me I could have both Naruto and Sasuke on my team, but I only have Sasuke. He was too angry to worry about formalites and Hiruzen overlooked it. Sasuke and Naruto were almost tied for first place. Putting them on a team together would show favoritism to the clan children, and I am not going to do that. If one of them had not been the best male student, I would have given you both, but I will not change a tradition created by my sensei to please you. Naruto is sensei's son. I owe it to him to train him to be the very best. And you think no one else is capable of that? Kakashi flinched at the comment. He didn't mean to say no one was capable, but Hiruzen held up a hand before he could talk. I understand your view, Kakashi. I really do, but Minato would agree with me if he were in my place, as he should be. I have assigned Naruto to Asuma. With his skills in blades, he will be able to teach Naruto more than you could. I promise you though, once he makes Chunin, I will assign you on missions together so you can have some contact with him. Kakashi sighed and ran his hand through his hair. He really wanted to teach Naruto, but after hearing what the Hokage said, he knew Hiruzen was right. He would need to make a bond with Naruto in a different way later on in his career. For now he would help Sasuke. Very well, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen could tell from the tone Kakashi was still upset but had accepted his change. I am sorry, Kakashi, but things cannot always be as we wish. Kakashi nodded at the Hokage before he turned to leave. He needed to rethink his team's strategy and calm his mind. Underneath Konoha Danzo sat at his desk and looked at the report in front of him. His root agents had spied on the academy exams and given him a detailed report about all of the students. He was sorely disappointed in the academy standards. Too many of these students should not be passed. He wasn't even comparing them to his high standards but the education he had as a child. He shook his head and picked up two files. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. He had been keeping his eyes on the boys ever since the massacre and was quite happy with their progress. Both were easily at a high genin level with some low chunin skills in certain fields, not to mention Sasuke had his Sharingan already and Naruto was at an unimaginable level of Fuinjutstu. Wolf, a root operative, appeared before him on his knee. Hi Danzo-sama. Remove your mask and find Naruto Uzumaki. I want you to deliver this to him. Return to me with his answer. Danzo finished writing on a scroll and tossed it to his operative. The man nodded and removed his cloak and mask. He wore the standard uniform of a Konoha Jonin. His face was youthful, looking no more than 20 years old, and he had short spiky black hair with olive green eyes. Right away, Danzo-sama. The man gave a quick bow and disappeared from the room. Ichiraku ramen Naruto slurped down yet another bowl of ramen happily as Hayate and Yugao talked to Ayame. After passing the test, Naruto had run outside and found Sasuke waiting for him. The two then went to Naruto's home and showed Yugao and Hayate that they had passed the test. The two Jonin were happy for them and offered to treat them to anything they wanted to eat. Naruto naturally screamed for ramen, and before anyone could argue he was rushing through the trees towards the stand. The others sighed and followed after him, only to arrive at the stand with him halfway through his second bowl. It's always ramen with you. Sasuke shook his head as he slowly worked on his bowl. Ramen is the food of the gods. It must be consumed as much as possible to strengthen the body. His words flowed out sagely as he spoke, but the others chuckled at his attitude. Thanks, right, my boy. Never let anyone tell you differently. Tyuki came out from the kitchen stirring a bowl and grinning. Please don't encourage him, Tyuki-san. Sasuke sighed at the older man. He and Ayame were the few who not only treated Naruto normally but he himself. The first time he gave Tyuki attitude, he was whacked over the head with a ladle. Oddly enough, that gained the man Sasuke's respect. Just give it up, Sasuke. You should know better than to try. Hayate grinned at the boy as he himself finished his ramen. Sasuke rolled his eyes and let out a sigh. Why did his friend have to be such an idiot sometimes? Excuse me, Uzumaki-san. Naruto and company all turned around to see a man in Konoha shinobi gear standing behind them. Yes. Naruto slurped up the last of his fifth bowl before he spoke. I have a message for you. The man pulled out a scroll and handed it to Naruto, then stepped back and waited. Hayate and Yugao carefully watched the man. His eyes never left Naruto, but they saw no sense of hatred or anger, just empty eyes waiting and observing. Naruto unrolled the scroll and started to read the contents. Dear Mr. Uzumaki, I wish to request a meeting between myself and you at 5 this afternoon at your compound. Please relay your answer to the messenger who delivered this scroll. Sincerely, Danzo Shimura, village elder. Sasuke looked over Naruto's shoulder and cocked an eyebrow at the scroll, wondering what one of the village elders wanted with Naruto. Please tell Danzo-san that I will be waiting for him. Hayate and Yugao's eyebrows rose when Naruto mentioned Danzo's name, but the messenger nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto, what did that message say? Hayate spoke with a worried and curious edge to his voice. He knew of Danzo and was worried what he wanted Naruto for. Yugao was also worried and knew she needed to speak to the Hokage about this. Danzo-san wanted to meet with me today. He didn't mention what, but I figure one of the village elders probably had something important to discuss. Naruto absently answered while he tried to think about what Danzo could want. He held no love for any of the village, but he couldn't ever remember the elders ever giving him trouble or even helping him. Not wanting to worry too much, he hopped from the stool and started to head home. Well, I'm going to go clean up the house a bit. Danzo-san said he would arrive at 5, so I want the house to look presentable. Sasuke waved over his shoulder, as he had returned to his ramen after the messenger left. Yugao and Hayate waved, but after Naruto left, the two stood and headed out towards the tower to inform the Hokage. Hokage office Hiruzen sat at his desk enjoying a rare moment of peace when a knock came at his door. Of course, he sighed and straightened himself in his chair. Enter. Hayate and Yugao walked into the office and gave a quick bow before Hayate cleared his throat. Hokage-sama, we felt it important to let you know that Danzo has requested a meeting with Naruto. Hiruzen's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly recovered and thought about what he heard. Hayate and Yugao waited for an order as Hiruzen puffed on his pipe. I see, thank you for informing me. Is that all? The duo looked slightly shocked and Yugao stepped forward. Hokage-sama, are you not worried? She was confused by his calm attitude. If someone wishes to speak with Naruto-kun, it is his business, not mine. Hiruzen seemed calm on the outside, but inside he was wondering what Danzo was planning. Hayate and Yugao exchanged looks but nodded and turned to leave the office. Uzumaki compound Danzo made his way to the gate at the front of the compound and examined it carefully. He noticed the intercom and pushed the button with his cane. Yes. A soft voice came from the device and Danzo assumed it was Naruto. It is Danzo Shimura. I am here for a meeting. He waited a moment and a seal glowed on the gate doors before they opened. Danzo made a note to ask about that seal for his own use and strolled down the path towards the house. He was impressed with the house. It was small but seemed well built and the landscape was perfect for both look and use. He reached the main door and knocked on it with the head of his cane. Hello Danzo-san. Please come in. Naruto opened the door and gestured for Danzo to enter. He had changed from his normal clothes into a dark blue kimono with a red sash and the Uzumaki symbol on the back of it. Danzo nodded and walked into the room and looked around at the light. Copyright core Naruto had. Please follow me to the study. I feel it will be more appropriate for our meeting. Danzo nodded and followed the boy down the hall to a pair of sliding doors. Opening it revealed a library with multiple bookcases full of scrolls. A large oak desk sat at the end of the room with the Uzumaki symbol carved in it. 2 leather chairs sat in front of the desk. Please have a seat Danzo-san. Would you like anything? Naruto walked around the desk and sat as he spoke. Danzo shook his head and took a seat. No, I am fine. He relaxed in the chair and placed his cane across his lap. I am sure you are curious as to why I am here. Naruto studied the man and nodded his head. I have come for different reasons, but the first of which is to hear your opinion of the village. We both know of how you were treated because of the Kyuubi, and I am curious as to how you see our village. Why now? I learned of that years ago. Danzo nodded but never let his eye leave Naruto. Yes, but until you became a shinobi you posed little threat. Now if you harbor ill will to the village you could cause problems. Danzo kept his voice calm but Naruto understood his meaning. I promise you Danzo-san I do not wish for any harm to befall Konoha and will protect it. Naruto leaned forward and placed his chin on his hands. That being said I could care less about any of the civilians or their problems in the village. Danzo studied Naruto for a few moments. He could see that Naruto was sincere in his feelings. I see. I cannot blame you but I hope, with time, your feelings will change. He noticed Naruto roll his eyes but continued on. Another reason I have come here today is to offer my services. What services? Naruto asked with a confused look while Danzo chuckled. As you know I am one of the village elders, as such I have some pull not just with the shinobi council but also the civilian side. If you ever need any help with either I would like you to know I am willing to help. What's in it for you? Naruto may only be a teenager but he was aware nothing was that easy, especially in a hidden village. Danzo smirked started to rub his bad arm. During the Second Shinobi War I was the leader of a strike force sent to deal with a resupply depot. I led a platoon of 30 Konoha shinobi out and split them into 2 teams. After destroying the depot we went to meet up with the other team but were ambushed by a group of Iwa shinobi. We fought bravely but soon everyone but myself was dead and I had lost use of my right arm. Danzo looked down at his arm then back to Naruto. I would have died that day had one Kunoichi not arrived to slay the remaining men and rush me to a medic. Who was it? Naruto was lost in the story and hadn't realized he was leaning forward on the desk. Your mother Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto slipped on the desk and looked at Danzo with wide eyes. Yes, I never did repay your mother so I offer my services to you. Naruto stared at Danzo a long time before he finally spoke. Thank you for the offer Danzo-san. If I need help I will be sure to come to you. Danzo nodded and stood from his seat. Thank you for meeting with me today. I hope you enjoy your team and wish you good luck. Naruto stood and walked Danzo to the door before wishing him a good day. Danzo made his way out of the compound smiling in his head. Everything he told Naruto was true and would help him get the boy on his side in the future. Naruto let out a sigh as he looked up at the ceiling. He had been in the classroom for half an hour now and Iruka still hadn't shown up to tell them about their teams. He looked around the room and saw almost all of his classmates had passed the exam, only some civilian children weren't present. Everyone seemed excited and were talking to one another about how great being a shinobi will be. Naruto chuckled at everyone's excitement and looked over to see Sasuke looking out the window, trying his best to ignore Sakura, Ino and the other girls' questions. He shook his head at the sight. He wondered when the girls were going to take the hint he wasn't interested in them. Course if he ignores all these girls he's never going to revive his clan, Naruto thought as he looked back up to the ceiling. Alright everyone settle down. He looked down at Iruka as he walked in holding a folder. The other students quickly shut up and watched as Iruka walked to the front of the class and stood behind a podium. Before I tell you who is on your team, I want to announce the top male and female of this graduating class. He opened the folder and acted like he was reading to build suspense. He noticed none of the males looked concerned, figuring it was obviously Sasuke or Naruto. The girls, however, were on the edges of their seats. They are Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. That's impossible. No way. Yes, eat that Ino pig. Iruka shook his head as all the girls and cleared his throat to get their attention. Shut up, forehead. Don't get mad at me cause you're too dumb to get Sasuke-kun's attention. Iruka cleared his throat louder this time to get their attention. Oh please, he only notices you because he can't miss your giant head. Sit down and shut up, Iruka yelled as he used his big head jutsu to gain the girls' attention. Both Ino and Sakura quickly sat down and shut up as Iruka glared at them. Now, as I was saying, while those two were the top two, I want to say that I am very proud of all of you. I have watched you grow into fine shinobi and hope you will all do great things in the future. The students all smiled and looked excited as he spoke. Now I will announce the teams. He opened up the folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. Team 1 will be. Naruto zoned out and started looking around the room at all of the students. He knew from history lessons that teams are made to help balance each other out, so he and Sasuke wouldn't be on a team. He wouldn't mind being on a team with any of the other clan kids. They were nice to him and none of their parents cared about his tenant, but if he was with any of the civilian children he might not have a good experience. Team 7 Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. No. Yes, true love conquers all. Sasuke's head slammed to the desk and Naruto heard him muttering curses, causing the blonde to laugh. And Kiba Inuzuka, your Junin sensei is Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 Choji Akamichi, Shino Aburame and Hinata Hyuga, your Jonin sensei is Kurenai Yuhi. Team 9 is still active, so Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Naruto Uzumaki and Ino Yamanaka, your Jonin sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. Naruto looked over at the sleeping form of Shikamaru and then over his shoulder at Ino, who was cursing at Sakura and her luck. Well, Shikamaru is pretty cool as long as I can keep him awake and Ino's okay, I guess. Hopefully she won't bug me all the time for information on Sasuke. Alright everyone, your Jonin sensei will be here soon. Again, it was a pleasure teaching all of you and I can't wait to see what you all will accomplish. He smiled at all of the students and bowed before leaving the room. Naruto smiled as the man left. Even though they had a difficult start, he had grown to like Iruka as a teacher. Please kill me now. The blonde turned to see his friend face down on the desk and holding a kunai to his friend. Come on, it won't be that bad. Sasuke sat up and looked at the boy with an, "Are you serious, look." He then turned and looked at Sakura, who was still laughing at Ino, and then back at Naruto. Okay. Well, yeah. It was a pleasure knowing you. He patted his friend on the shoulder, earning a glare from his raven-haired friend. Before Sasuke could speak, the classroom door opened and several shinobi walked into the room. Most were wearing the standard Konoha uniform with a few changes to make it their own look. Naruto recognized Asuma as soon as the man walked in. While they had never met, he had seen pictures of him at the Hokage office. The students waited as each Junin called out their teams in numerical order and walked out with them. Naruto also couldn't help but notice Team 8's sensei and had to admit he was a little jealous as to not having a beautiful sensei like her. Team 10, you're with me. Naruto was broken from his thoughts as he stood up with Ino and Shikamaru. Hey, where's our sensei? Sakura looked around and realized they were the only ones left and no other Junin were in the room. Don't worry, I'm sure he will be along soon, Asuma said, but everyone noticed him trying to suppress a laugh and became confused as to why that was funny. I'll see you later, I guess, the blonde told his friend and headed after his sensei. HN, was the response as the boy looked back out the window. Naruto, Ino and Shikamaru quietly followed behind their sensei as they walked along the streets towards the outskirts of the village. Asuma and Naruto noticed the looks people gave them and even heard some whispering about why the demon was with the third son. Asuma watched out the corner of his eye to gauge Naruto's reaction and was happy the boy didn't pay it any mind. He also waited to see if Ino and Shikamaru were noticing it too. He didn't want to explain why it was happening and was glad neither seemed to notice. Soon the group made it to training ground 10 and Asuma sat down and leaned against a tree while the trio of students all sat in front of him. He pulled out a cigarette and lighted before turning to the students. Alright, why don't we get to know each other a little better? I'm sure you know each other, but why don't you tell me things you like, dislike and what you hope to accomplish in life? I'll go first. I enjoy shogi and taking strolls around the village. I dislike rainy days and I one day hope to have a family. Alright, who wants to go next? I will. Ino's hand shot up. My name is Ino. I like flowers and Sasuke-kun, dislike forehead and bug. My dream is to become Mrs. Sasuke Uchiha. She finished with a dreamy look in her eye as she envisioned her future. Naruto, Shikamaru and Asuma shook their heads and Asuma looked to Naruto. My name is Naruto. I like reading, ramen and training. I dislike people who judge others before they get to know them. I hope to one day restore my clan to its former glory. Asuma nodded, well aware of what Naruto meant about those people, while Ino and Shikamaru gave him odd looks. Troublesome, but I guess it's my turn. My name is Shikamaru. I like shogi and cloud watching. I dislike troublesome things. I want to be an average shinobi, meet an average women and have 2 kids, 1 boy 1 girl. He closed his eyes and laid back as he finished talking and Naruto stared at him. I thought you said women were too troublesome to both with. What? Ino glared at the boy as he let out a groan. Troublesome blondes. He rolled to his side and covered his ears as Ino got up and prepared to beat him. Luckily for Shikamaru, Asuma grabbed hold of her. Alright, calm down Ino, there will be plenty of time to kill Shikamaru after you all pass the test. That statement caused all of them to look at him, but Ino spoke up. What test? I thought we were already a team. Asuma let her go and took a drag on his cigarette. Actually, this is just a possible team. Every one of the teams have to pass a test from their Junin senseis to see if they have what it takes to be a team. If you fail, you have to either quit the shinobi life or go take extra classes at the academy to try again. What? That's unfair. Ino whined as Naruto and Shikamaru nodded along, both not wanting to go back for another year of school. If you don't like it, then I guess you'll just have to pass, won't you? He chuckled when he saw the fire in her eyes. Alright, then you have 2 tasks to accomplish. First you have to capture me and then you have to figure out what my shinobi ID number is. The rules are no leaving the training ground. He pulled out his cigarette and dropped it to the ground. Any questions? Can we go all out? Ino looked at Naruto and noticed he looked serious. It made her wonder what he meant. Shikamaru though knew Naruto and Sasuke were stronger than they let on at the academy, but he had always wondered how much. Asuma however smirked and reached behind his back and pulled out 2 trench knives. You better. Naruto broke out into a fox-like grin and jumped to his feet before holding out his arm and unsealing his bakken while sealing his katana at the same time. The others looked impressed at his quick actions, but only Asuma realized how impressive that really was. Naruto took advantage of Asuma's moment of interest and jumped at him, swinging his bakken at Asuma's side. I never said go. He dropped his arm down and blocked the strike but was surprised with how heavy it was. He pushed Naruto back and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto, what was that? The blonde turned to see Ino looking at him with wide eyes. Troublesome blondes. We can ask questions later, Ino. We need to think of a plan to find and capture Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru stood up and brushed the dirt of his clothes. Wow, Shikamaru, never thought I would hear you opting to do work. Naruto chuckled as he finished, earning a smirk for the boy. If I don't, my mother will yell at me and that's too troublesome. So what do we do then? Ino stood beside the boys and looked at the 2 of them. Obviously he is more skilled than all of us, but I doubt he's going to go all out. My guess is that if we create a good enough plan he will let us capture him. No point in making the second condition if he wasn't going to give us the chance to capture him. The others nodded along to Shikamaru's theory. Meanwhile Asuma listened from the top of one of the nearby trees. I knew he was smarter than he let on to be at the academy. I'll go and give them a chance to come up with a plan. He leapt from his spot and made his way deeper into the forest. So what should we do? Ino asked again, annoyed he didn't answer the first time. Shikamaru knelt down and put his hands in a circle in front of him and closed his eyes. Ino narrowed her eyes and was about to yell at him, but Naruto held his hand up to stop her. He guessed Shikamaru was thinking and didn't want Ino to disturb him. Naruto, do you know any seals that we can use to trap him with? He asked, opening his eyes. Yup. I know, can make some binding seals for when we get him and can also perform a couple barrier jutsu that can trap him in a space. Ino again looked surprised, but Shikamaru nodded. Okay. Ino and myself are not that great at close combat, and judging from sensei's weapons he is. Naruto, you will have to engage him and force him towards us. Ino will then draw his attention with projectiles. I'll use my Kajimane no Jutsu to catch him while he avoids you guys. After we catch him, Naruto will bind him and Ino will search his mind. He looked and got a firm nod from both. Naruto then unsealed a scroll from his wrist and unrolled it. He again unsealed a set of brushes, ink holders and some blank seal tags. Quickly he went about writing on them and paid no mind to the watching eyes of Ino and Shikamaru. These are chakra suppression tags. Once applied to a source with chakra, it blocks them from using it. These will only last an hour but will keep sensei from using any chakra. He passed Ino and Shikamaru to each. He sealed up everything and then looked to the woods. Shall we? Ino and Shikamaru grinned and the three dashed into the woods. Soon Shikamaru stopped and took a position in a bush while Ino climbed up into a tree. Naruto made a mental note to show them the tree climbing exercise but focused as he appeared in a clearing with Asuma leaning against a tree and smoking. What took you so long? He asked as smoke flowed out his nose. Well, it takes some time to get Shikamaru moving and Ino to stop talking. Naruto walked into the clearing and stood relaxed with his bakken aimed at the ground. True, but they're not so bad, right? Asuma flicked his cigarette to the side. We'll see, but it's just you and I right now, sensei. Let's dance. Naruto shot forward and went for an overhead strike at Asuma, but the man brought up his trench knives and blocked it. He threw out a kick to knock Naruto away, but the blonde saw it coming and jumped back on his own. He surged forward again and tried to stab Asuma, but he easily moved out of the way. Naruto kept on though, and strike after strike forced Asuma to move backwards. So he's trying to lure me somewhere. Ino and Shikamaru must be waiting back the way he came from. So what if I do this? Asuma dodged another strike, but the next hit him, surprising Naruto until Asuma turned into a cloud of smoke and a tree branch lay on the ground. The boy quickly looked around and just barely brought up his weapon to block a strike from Asuma. Naruto let out an annoyed groan as he started to lose in the pushing contest and jumped back. Looks like I'm not going to beat you alone, sensei. Naruto smirked as he spoke and brought his hands together. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 3 more Narutos appeared in the field and 4 gave Asuma a fox-like grin. Asuma himself chuckled and looked at the 4. He noticed the seal and knew these were shadow clones, so they would be able to attack. No sooner had he gotten ready did 2 of the Narutos rush at him while the other 2 moved around the side. Easily blocked the first strike, but as he went to attack the clone it was blocked by the other and the first clone went to attack again. Asuma jumped back and then quickly rolled to the side as a third Naruto attacked from behind. He gained his footing and stuck both arms out to block 2 strikes from the Narutos, then jumped back as the third tried to strike his head. He stood and looked carefully as the 3 stood across from him and then realized there were only 3. Instinct alone saved him as he brought up his left arm before it was struck hard by a bakken. He jumped to the side as it hit to avoid the full force but felt like his arm was definitely bruised. So you can walk on trees. Very good, I gotta say I didn't expect that. Asuma shook his head at the blonde as Naruto smiled. Thanks sensei, but it's not over yet. Let's get him, boys. The other 3 let out a cry and charged Asuma, each moving to strike. Still feeling the sting from the last attack, Asuma jumped back and into the woods to avoid the boy, but soon his instincts went off again and he moved to the side as kunai hid where he was. Damn, I was so focused on Naruto I forgot they were waiting for me. He looked up and saw Ino crouched in a tree preparing to throw more but stopped when she saw 4 of them. Asuma took advantage and jumped up and grabbed Ino holding a blade to her. Well Naruto, dispel those clones and put the bakken away. Naruto looked up and let out a sigh. While Asuma wasn't going to hurt her, he knew what he had to do. The 3 clones disappeared in a smoke and he sealed his bakken. Good now. Kajime no Jutsu. Asuma suddenly felt very stiff, then suddenly his arms flew open and Ino fell to the branch. Naruto bind him. Naruto quickly jumped to the tree and pulled out a kunai and removed the Junin's flak jacket before cutting his shirt off. Ino blushed at the sight of the man and quickly turned while Naruto unsealed his ink and quickly wrote over Asuma's torso and arms. After a few minutes he was done and went through some hand seals. Eternal Binding Jutsu. Everyone watched as the kanji glowed red and the Asuma's arms flew up and crossed his chest touching each shoulder. Shikamaru was surprised when his arms did the same but as he stopped flowing chakra his arms fell. Shikamaru stood and walked to the others as Naruto grabbed Asuma and jumped to the ground with Ino behind him. Well, you caught me, congrats, but you still have to get my ID number, he said with a chuckle, still surprised they caught him so quickly. Alright Ino, you're up. Naruto turned to the girl. She smiled and nodded before walking over to Asuma. Shindenshin no Jutsu. She closed her eyes and placed her hand on his head after she finished. Naruto and Shikamaru waited and after 10 minutes her eyes opened and she fell to the ground exhausted. The boys waited for a minute before Naruto approached her. Did you get it? No, he kept thinking of random numbers and thoughts. I couldn't get through all of it. She looked upset as she talked. Naruto guessed she thought she was better than she was. Not easy on someone who isn't letting you in their mind, is it? Asuma chuckled when he saw Ino's glare. Well, what are you going to do now? Naruto turned to Shikamaru as Ino growled and started to curse under her breath at Asuma. Shikamaru let out a sigh and thought about their options. He doubted Naruto and Ino knew an interrogation techniques. He looked up and saw an evil grin on Naruto's face and suddenly grew a little afraid. Well, Asuma-sensei, I think you should tell us or else all those pictures of you doing perverted things will be released. Everyone grew quiet at the comment and Asuma looked at Naruto. What are you talking about? He was very nervous right now. Naruto, why the hell do have pictures of Asuma-sensei doing perverted things? Ino was blushing deeply. Shikamaru was completely confused. Oh, I don't have any, but a simple henge and camera could easily change that. His mischievous grin never left his face and it was only matched by Ino and Shikamaru as they caught on. I said you can't leave the training ground. A small amount of fear was in his voice at the idea. While he doubted many people would believe such photos, he didn't want to take a chance. And we won't, but if we happen to fail, well then I've got no reason not to do it. Asuma's eyes flew open and sweat poured down his face. Okay, you pass. He looked up at them with a pleading look. I guess it's good to have troublesome blondes sometimes. Shikamaru smirked but was happy. What was the Shikamaru? Ino glared at the boy and he quickly looked away. This is all nice and good, but do you think you could let me go now, Naruto? Asuma flipped onto his feet and stood by the blonde. Naruto nodded and went through the hand seals to release the binding. Once free, Asuma put his flak jacket on so to cover himself some. Thank you. Now congratulations on passing. You are officially Genin of Konoha. Ino cheered while Naruto smiled big and Shikamaru muttered something about being troublesome but smile nonetheless. Now why don't you guys go ahead to Yakiniku Q and I'll meet you after I go and get myself a new shirt. Ino and Shikamaru nodded but Naruto looked hesitant. Sorry sensei, but I made plans for dinner already. He scratched the back of his head and looked apologetic, but Asuma could tell the real reason. He simply nodded and let it go. He would have a talk with Naruto later and iron everything out. No problem, meet us tomorrow at 8 here for training. The blonde nodded and the three headed back towards the village. Asuma pulled out a cigarette and lit it. He liked the team so far. If he could get Shikamaru motivated and Ino out of her fangirl attitude, they could easily become better than their fathers. Naruto would take some thinking about. He had the motivation, but he would have to figure ways to keep him interested in the team and not try to alienate himself from them because of their attitudes. Sighing, he turned to his house and began jumping through the trees, making sure to stay hidden so no one saw him.